Hello there, and welcome to episode 20 of the Or So She Says podcast. So, if this is your first time here, hello and welcome. Probably a weird one to tune into if this is your first episode, but anyway, either way, happy to have you here. So, my name is Narissa Shea, and I am a mindset coach, personal trainer, nutritionist, sport and exercise psychology consultant, yoga instructor, Reiki practitioner, and a professional Irish dancer. So today's episode is going to be a little bit more off the cuff than my usual very well planned episodes. I do have a rough idea of what I am going to say, but as always, I feel like this episode is going to go off on a bit of a tangent in true Narissa style. Mainly because of the topic. I feel like even though I have kind of a structure that I want to talk about, I'm going to probably be jumping forward and back between things because things are going to pop into my head that I want to talk about. And it's so funny. At this present moment in time, I am 15 weeks pregnant. I have two brains in my body at the moment, which is really cool. But at the same time, I've never felt so forgetful in my life. So bear with me. We'll get through this. So in this episode, I am going to discuss my pregnancy journey so far. So as I said, I am 15 weeks today, so I am just out of the dreaded first trimester. Before I jump into this episode today, though, I actually want to start off with some trigger warnings, okay? If you are someone who is really struggling with fertility, or perhaps you're someone who has experienced a loss, multiple losses, firstly, I want to extend my heartfelt love to you. Over the past few years, I have been dealing with a lot of women, both as a coach and as a Reiki practitioner, who have been struggling to conceive, have struggled with losses, and it has actually baffled me just how common this issue is. And this is not me saying it common to brush it away. Actually, in fact, I'm trying to say the opposite. The fact it is not spoken about enough is just wild. And it's not until the last few years that I have really realized just how many people are struggling with this. And the worst thing about it is how many people are silently struggling with this. And I don't think I'd have known about this had I not been working in the field that I am actually working in. Like, I work as obviously a coach who works with mindset and fitness and nutrition. And I've had clients come to me whose goal is to conceive, especially women who are diagnosed with PCOS and stuff like that. There's a lot of evidence around that, implementing an exercise routine and getting on top of your nutrition is really, really going to help. Okay. But it's mad. Like, it's not until I've actually entered these fields, between whether it's coaching or Reiki, did I realize how many women are struggling with this. So, as with most things in the women's health space, women are silently struggling through fertility issues and miscarriages. And they're just expected to get on with things because this is a man's world we live in. 9 to 5, grind, few days off and back to work. Like, you're signed off for maybe a couple of days, I don't know. And then you're just expected to go back to work like nothing happened. It's just actually disgraceful. And my eyes have really only been open to this in the last few years. So I digress. The trigger warning here is before you listen to this, I got pregnant quite quickly. And thus far, touch wood and touch my crystal that I've been clutching since I found out, things have been quite low risk for us. So I urge you, if this is something that is going to piss you off, don't listen to it, okay? In true Narissa fashion, I am going to be brutally honest in this episode. And some of the stuff I might say might trigger the bloody life out of someone who's been trying to conceive for a very long time. And I really don't want that. I really, really don't want that. This podcast is so I can share my own stories in the hopes of helping others, not hurting them. So if this is a sensitive topic for you, feel free to knock me right off, okay? You can always come back to me in my next episode where I have something very juicy lined up, which has nothing to do with pregnancies or conception or anything of the sort. It is just going to be a really, really juicy one. I have some cool guests lined up. But in this solo episode, I am actually going to discuss my journey through the first trimester. The highs, the lows, the huge amount I have learned along the way and just how bloody amazing the female body really is. Like, holy shit. If you're anything like me, right? Before I got pregnant, I was like, oh yeah, pregnant women are pretty awesome, grow a human, push it out, cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool, like that we can do that. But think about it. Your entire body knows how to grow a fucking human from scratch in your womb. Like, and not only that, which baffles me as well, because I was like, what? How did I not even realize this? It also builds an entire organ from scratch, right? The placenta, which is what is going to keep your baby alive. So I think not only do women not get enough credit for the fact that pregnancy is hard, right? And all the journey up to it is hard. But also, it's kind of because, it's been ingrained in us. Women get pregnant, they have babies, blah, blah, blah. And it's just kind of, brushed off. And I'm like, why is this not like spoken about? Like, I know in cultures years and years ago, like, women would become pregnant and the whole community would gather together and it'd be such a sacred thing that a woman would go through, and the process would be really, really important. Like, they would speak to other women who've had kids, they'd speak to other women who are pregnant. The whole thing would be so sacred, and childbirth would be sacred, and it would be around women, and it would be such an empowering transition in your life. And yet in the Western world, we're just like, oh yeah, get pregnant, 9 months of pregnancy, have the baby, now you're a mother. And I'm like, no, but you actually go through so many changes, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally, literally from the minute you decide you want to conceive. And it is not spoken about enough. And I am guilty because I was not someone who's always been very interested in childbirth or pregnancy or anything really. As with most people, I don't think you really get interested in it until you go through it yourself. So I really found that when I looked into this, I was just like, this is the biggest thing anyone will ever do in their lives. Like, scrap any of the entrepreneur stuff that I've done so far. Like, not a patch. I think of all these massive goals I used to have and all these huge milestones I achieved in my business and these public speaking events and all these things. And I'm like, none of that compares to this. And like, what you go through during this period is probably going to be the most important thing you'll ever do, preparing for not only childbirth, but preparing for postpartum, becoming a parent. Like, your whole life changes, and yet we just brush over this. So anyway, back to the story and how it started. So when did we actually decide to start trying? This is when everyone asks us. So we had a very, very stressful year trying to get our mortgage sorted for the house. And we finally got our AIP. I think it was in August we got our AIP. And we decided on a house. So things were moving in the right direction. We were like, oh my God, this is actually happening. After 6 months of torture with the mortgage, I think we're actually on the road to getting a house. So we were going on holidays to Lisbon the end of August. It was actually the 30th of August. And we were going away for a week. And I would literally, to a T, remember all the dates because I worked myself to the bone during the summer. Like, I literally was in burnout mode all summer because I was literally teaching like 8 classes a week just to try and get some more money because we were so stressed about the mortgage. And I remember it to a T the exact day that we flew out and the exact day we came home. So anyway, we went on holidays and it was great. It was the first week of September. It was just so nice to just switch off and not work because I'd worked all summer. We didn't really do anything during the summer. Like, literally, I remember getting to every weekend and just being so burnt out from the week that, like, I didn't even want to do anything or go anywhere or even see people, really. Like, I really, really ran myself into the ground. So that week in September was lovely. We we went out for Like, we're not big drinkers on holidays. Like, we're not the type of people that go drinking every night on holidays. We normally have quite active holidays, actually. But we went for a good few drinks the first night anyway, and I got rat arsed on Aperol spritzes. And when I say the hangover the next day, I don't think I've ever experienced a hangover that bad. Well, definitely in the last few years anyway, because I just couldn't. I was down the beach the next day and literally I was sitting there and I sat up and I was like, Eamon, I'm going to get sick. And he was like, there's the toilet over there. I was like, not going to make it to the toilet. Give me that bag. Give me that bag. Puke might ring up on the beach in a bag. It was beautiful. Had I have not done my calculations from my period, I could have probably just thought that I was pregnant there and then, because I was like, what the hell? I never normally get sick after drinking, but I was getting sick all day. Anyway, this has nothing to do with the pregnancy. It was just a funny story. But the holiday went on and we were kind of like chatting, and we ended up like bringing up the conversation because we both kind of said, yeah, we want kid, singular. But we weren't putting a lot of pressure on it, but at the same time we were also very aware that neither of us are spring chickens either. We're not in our 20s anymore, and everyone around me was like, oh, after 35, blah 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 blah, and all this bullshit and stuff. And I was just like, it starts putting so much pressure on people then, and then you see so many people struggling to get pregnant that it starts to play on your mind. So the two of us were kind of like, maybe it wouldn't be the worst time in the world to start trying. It's probably going to take us a long time, like, and we were like, let's not put a lot of pressure on it either. Don't want it to become a methodical thing, like. So we just enjoyed the holiday anyway. Let's just say that. And after the holiday, then I came home and I was fully convinced I was pregnant, like fully convinced. I was just like, my bibs are sore. I was like, I feel really sick. Now, I thought I felt sick. I think I was actually just dealing with the aftermath of the holiday at the time. And I was really, really convinced though that I was pregnant, and I was so happy about it. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then on the 18th of September, I started getting really bad cramps and I went into the toilet, got my period, and I was heartbroken. And I was like, what? I didn't even realize like this was something that I really, really wanted. Like, everyone's asking me like, what? Especially me, because I'm not like the most I don't want to say maternal person. I am maternal, but not in the ways that I really want to be around newborn babies or anything like that. I actually think, when I think back on it and I say I'm not maternal, I've always been maternal, but to people in general, I just care a lot about people. So I have my own way of being maternal, but I wasn't a big baby person, right? So people were always shocked. They were like, what? My aunties, when I told them, they were like, I was not expecting to hear this off you. And I couldn't believe how heartbroken I was, though, which makes me really, really feel for the people who go through this every month and they get their period and then it's once again feeling like your body just has failed you. Like that, it's so weird. It's so hard to explain unless you've gone through it as well. And it was really weird as well because I had this situation on holidays, and this is what was really the kind of nail in the coffin for me, I suppose. Is I was sitting on the beach one of the days and I was looking at this group of young people and they were having a couple of beers and they were having a laugh. And now, up until probably last year, I would have looked at them going, yeah, that's what I want. Loads of traveling and meeting new people. And me and Eamon do a lot of traveling, like, and we always have such a good time when we go away and stuff like that. And I was just looking at them. But then on the other side of me, there was this family there, this mom and this dad and this little kid. And the dad with the kid was the most adorable thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, he was looking at his daughter like she was the only person in the whole world. Like, the love was just, it was actually really, really beautiful to watch. It's a good thing I had sunglasses on though, because I would have looked like an absolute creep staring at them. But something in me just shifted and I was like, oh my God, I want that. So I was looking at the family and I was like, I want that. And I was looking at the young people and I was like, I don't want that anymore. I was like, that's not what was making my heart sing anymore. And I was like, whoa. So anyway, this was kind of all the tipping point that made me kind of realize, oh my God, maybe I do really want this. And then I got my period, I was heartbroken, and we went through a whole day of crying, and then we had to remind ourselves, people to be trying for years and years and years, and we just have to be patient. So we said, we'll try again for one more month because I was actually supposed to do a tour at the end of the year. So in true Narissa fashion, she's putting time limits on everything. I was like, we can try again this month, but we can't try again next month because I'll literally only find out before the tour and it'll be too late. So I'm sure Eamon's just looking at me there, rolling his eyes, going, yeah, whatever, Narissa. And I had this in my head. I was like, so, right, we're going to try this month, and then if it doesn't happen, we won't try the following month, but then we'll try again after that, and we'll get really stuck into it. So I was doing some TikTok research, as you do, me, hardcore science person, but I love a bit of TikTok science, and I found this thing about Exputex, right? Now, if you're not from Ireland, it might be called something else. Exputex is basically a cough ball, right? And I was like, this is so bizarre. But at the same time, I was kind of like, we weren't desperate or anything. It was only our second time trying. But at the same time, I was like, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to kind of help the process, right? So I was like, it's not going to do me any harm to take Exputex for a few days. So Exputex, the way it works is it actually thins the lining of the mucus. When you have a chest infection and stuff like that, that's how it actually is supposed to work, right? But there was a lot of things online saying if you actually use it, that it can do the same thing to the lining of your uterus, which can actually help sperm get to the egg. So, look, I'm not saying this was it, that it worked. Obviously, the outcome of this situation because I'm currently talking about a pregnancy podcast. But it was also our first month of properly trying as well. So look, could be anything. I also am a firm believer, and this is not me saying anything against anyone or anything, but I firmly believe a baby is going to come into the world when they're ready to come into the world. Like, from a spiritual standpoint, they are a soul, and they are going to come when they're ready, not when you're ready. So if it worked this month, maybe it was the Exputex. Maybe me and Eamon are more fertile than we thought. Maybe it was the first month of actually trying, or maybe it was because this baby's like, right, you know what, I want you to be my mom and dad, and I'm kind of ready to come in now, so let's do this. So this was kind of the way that month kind of lined up. And to be honest, I didn't really think much of it. I didn't actually think I was pregnant this month. And to backtrack a little bit here, because it wouldn't be a Narissa podcast without being a little bit woo-woo, right? The funniest thing is, this didn't dawn on me until actually after I found out I was pregnant. But I went to an angel card reader during the summer, and it was really funny because I went to her for like a career reading because my career was a shit show last year. Like, I'd invested so much money in my business and everything was just falling apart around me. I also decided to sign up to this thing just before we started applying for a mortgage, and I was tied into a 6-month contract, like paying so much a month. And I was like, my business is failing and I have to pay this every month, and it's the fucking month like that we start applying for a mortgage. Like, so I was like, here, angel card lady, give me some advice on, my business and, what am I doing with my career, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And she was like, she brought up a couple of things to do with work. Like, she was saying, oh, you're going to get offered some work in the UK, in London in September. And ironically, I actually did. I couldn't do it, but I did actually get offered work in London in September, which kind of, when that happened, made me think back to what she said. And I was like, oh, wonder if what she said was true. Because then we were talking about other things. She was like nervous system and Reiki, and we were talking about all these different things. But she kept pulling cards about children. And I kept saying to her, I'm not trying to have a child. And she was like, okay, I know you're not, but all of these cards are to do with children. Like, and I was like, well, look, loads of my friends are trying to have kids, so maybe it's just to do with that. And she kept looking at me and being like, no. And she kept seeing that I didn't want to talk about it. because I was getting frustrated with her because I was just like, I don't know what you want me to say. Like, me and Eamon are not trying for kids at the moment. And I was like, so we have no intention of trying anytime soon. This was like June or July. I went to her. And little did I know my mind was going to swiftly change in the blink of an eye. But she was saying all this. And then she was on to her last reading where she pulled the last 3 cards. And she goes, look, I know you don't want to talk about this and you don't think it's something that is to do with you. She was like, but I can't in good faith let you go without saying just this one thing. I know you've seen a lot of your friends struggle with trying to get pregnant, with miscarriages, with fertility issues. You are going to get pregnant quicker than you think. It's going to be a happy, healthy baby, and you're going to have a healthy pregnancy, and that baby is going to be healthy. And she goes, now, I'll leave it there. I won't say it again. And she was like, but I cannot in good faith let you go out that door without saying it. And I kind of left and I was like, okay. And it's so funny because she let me write loads of stuff down and I was writing everything under the sun down about everything else she said other than the kids. So it was really, really funny when I was just like, oh my God. she was on the money. Little did I know back then. I'd say she was just laughing when I left though as well, because she was a Reiki master too. And I'd say she was just like, that girl has no idea what she has coming to her this year. And I'm just there floating around thinking about me fecking business and the mortgage, being like, why should she keep talking about kids? Anyway, so that was the first woo-woo thing to happen. The second woo-woo thing to happen was I have about 7 decks of cards, and I always get asked by people, do you do readings? Do you do readings? Right? And I'm like, look, I can do a reading, but with my oracle cards, it's kind of like I can put it together and you kind of read what it's explaining and you go with your gut a little bit, put the story together. But with the tarot, I don't normally use my tarot deck with other people because tarot is a lot more, for want of a better word, this is what I mean. And it's not really that much open for interpretation. Whereas the oracle cards are a bit softer. So if I have clients coming to me, Reiki clients, and I ask them, do they want to pull a couple of cards at the end of a session? I usually let them pull a couple of oracle cards and I let them read the explanation themselves. Because I don't want to tell them what it means either. You know, like people, they read it and they get what they need from it. So that's the way I kind of like to do it at the moment. Maybe down the line when I have more time, when I'm on maternity leave, I might actually spend a bit of time learning the tarot deck, because I keep getting asked all of the time, will I do readings? And I actually love doing them. And I do them sometimes for friends. I do massive readings for myself every week, but I wouldn't have the confidence to whip the tarot deck out and know exactly it off the bat. I have to look things up. So that's why perfectionist Narissa doesn't want to do tarot readings yet. And I like to just be left alone while I'm doing it as well, to put it all together. So anyway, I was doing a reading for myself and it was 13th of October and I was having some cacao and I was like, I hadn't whipped out my tarot deck in a while. I'd just been using the oracle cards, but this day I felt like doing a big spread for myself and I whipped out the tarot deck first and I was shuffling the cards anyway and boom, Ace of Cups flies out of the deck, like flies out. I didn't even like pull it. It actually just fell out, right? Which I love when this happens, okay? Now, the Ace of Cups is a lot to do with pregnancy, fertility. It can be to do with good news kind of coming your way as well financially. It can be a really good sign if you're looking for like a mortgage or something like that. So we obviously were waiting on our letter of offer for the mortgage, right? And then I pulled the Ace of Cups. So, because the Ace of Cups can also be an indicator of pregnancy and fertility. So it is a good omen if you are trying to conceive. It is also good financially because you may receive good news in relation to finances, such as a loan or mortgage approval. So these came up anyway, and I was like, whoa, okay. Now, obviously, it was a good omen for the fertility. We had tried that month, but I really didn't think I was pregnant that month. And I went running into Eamon after, and I was like, look. I was like, I bet you we're going to get our letter of offer this week. And lo and behold, we did get our letter of offer that week. And little did we know we were also going to find out we were pregnant that week. So I was like, thinking back on the Ace of Cups, then I was like, oh, damn, that tarot card does not fuck around. Now, in hindsight, Obviously, if you understand gestation periods, which I actually didn't really understand anything about pregnancy really until I went into it. Week 1 and 2, you are not pregnant, right? Okay, think about it now. I love all things related to the menstrual cycle, so now we're just taking it a little bit further. Week 1 is where usually you are menstruating, okay? So day 1 is the first day of your bleed, that is your period, okay? And then we go into the follicular phase, okay? So follicular phase, estrogen is rising. This is when you're coming up to ovulation time, okay? And then obviously you're trying to time to have the sex around ovulation as much as possible to increase the chances of the sperm meeting the egg, okay? Sex ed 101, we all understand that. So when you think about it, they always go by the first day of your last period. So when you think about pregnancy week 1 and 2, you're not actually pregnant. You're not actually pregnant till week 3. And at that stage, then yes, you're pregnant. But literally, the sperm can meet the egg. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to implant, okay? Which is another thing. I was like, actually, having a baby is like so much harder than we think, right? It's so much involved to even get the sperm to the egg to then implant in the womb, because all of this has to happen before you're even pregnant, right? So when I think about it now, the week before I found out I was pregnant, I was wrecked, like so tired, and I couldn't understand it. I was out with my mom one of the days and I was doing Reiki appointments, and it was funny because I was like, one of the days I must have fallen asleep on the couch around 7 o'clock in the evening. And she said I slept. She woke me up. I went to bed and slept till like 7 or 8 the next day, which is weird for me. Mom actually told me after that she's worried about me and I should go for blood tests because I shouldn't be that tired. And I was like, I know, it's really weird. I don't know why I'm so tired this month. So that was actually one of the first signs that I didn't really notice. You're not going to really start feeling pregnancy symptoms straight away either, okay? So this is something I didn't realize. You're not really going to get symptoms like literally as soon as your body's starting to implant. You might feel implantation pains, and you might experience some spotting and stuff like that. I didn't. So I kind of just was like, I didn't really notice anything other than being really tired. And it wasn't actually until I realized I was pregnant did I actually think back and was like, oh, maybe that's actually why I was so tired. There was a lot going on there while that little embryo was trying to like lock itself in. Anyway, 17th of October. We love the 17th. We always think something really cool happens on the 17th of every month because my birthday is the 17th of November and Amy's birthday is the 17th of June. So we're like 17th, best date ever. So 17th of October rolls around. I did not think I was pregnant. My period was one day late, but I have been syncing with the full moon pretty much all year. And the full moon was that night. So I was like, I'm not pregnant. It's just a day late, which sounds stupid when I'm saying it back, but I actually was just fully convinced it was mainly because I was syncing with the moon, right? So I was like, I'll get it this evening. I'll probably get it in the middle of the night. So I was teaching a yoga class that evening. I was teaching a yoga class that morning, and then I was teaching a class that evening as well. So in between, I came home, I was doing a bit of work, and then I did my usual thing where I go to bed and I do an hour of Reiki. No, sorry, I was on the couch and I was doing an hour of Reiki. And the thing that I did notice was over the last couple of months, I was always falling asleep with my hand over my sacral chakra, which is my womb, right? Which is correlated with fertility. Now, I wasn't really thinking too much of this until I kind of went back thinking of all of these things, but I kept falling asleep with my hand there, which meant my hand, while I was giving myself the Reiki, was there for a reason, okay? I truly believe that. So I kind of woke up from this Reiki nap where I'm like a little bit spaced out of it, and there was literally a voice in my head was like, do a test. And I was like, well, I don't want to do a test and just be disappointed again, because I was like, last month I did an early test and it just made me sad. And then I got my period. I was like, I just don't want to be put in a bad mood. I was in quite a good mood. I was like, do a test. I was like, right, fine. So I happen to have pregnancy tests and ovulation sticks because one of my friends actually gave me them. And so I actually happened to have them in the kitchen, and I actually didn't even get a chance to use the ovulation sticks, but my friend was like, look, use these when you're trying because they come in really handy and it makes things a little less methodical, and you can just enjoy yourself a little bit more. And I was like, oh, there's pregnancy tests in here as well. Okay. So I did one, and it was one of the ones, it was like the strip ones that's detecting the HCG. So anyway, I did it, and the first thing was I really wasn't expecting, even if I was pregnant, for it to come up because it wasn't the first pee of the day. I was only a day late. So, like, if you understand pregnancy tests, especially when you're taking them early, usually they'll say you need to use the first pee of the day because that's when the HCG level is the highest because you haven't drank it. Now, I drank loads of water and stuff at this stage, so I really wasn't expecting it. And then I saw the line and I was like, what? So I did another one. Saw a faint line. I was like, what? And then I ran over to the chemist and got the clear blue test, and that came up then 2 to 3 weeks. And I was like, oh my God. And it was like, oh my God, I remember the day so clearly. I was stuck in the apartment waiting for a guy to come and fix the blinds. Eamon had to do something after work or something, and he was taking ages to come home as well. And I obviously wanted to tell him in person. And I usually, when I'm so excited or, I want time to pass a little bit quick, I'll just go for a big walk. But I was stuck at home waiting for the blind guy to come all day. So I was stuck in the apartment, and I was just like, oh my God, I just want Eamon to come home so I can tell him. So it was really, really funny. But it was really good, and Eamon was so happy, and I was so happy I recorded showing him as well because his little face, I have like a screenshot of it on my phone. I was like, it was just adorable. And it was really funny then because that weekend we actually had a going away party, and I drove into town, and I was like, oh, I have an event tomorrow, so I can't drink, which isn't a massive thing. Like, people aren't that shocked when I say I don't drink because I've often gone to things and not drink, so it doesn't make people very suspicious. But I was peeing all night, and then at the end of the night, one of the girls actually turned around to me when it was just me and her, and she's like, don't lie to me, okay? Promise me you'll tell me the truth. And it was really like out of nowhere that she said this to me, and I was like, okay, this is really weird. Like, what? She was like, are you pregnant? And I was like, what? No, and now I'm the worst liar in the world. The worst lie. I can't lie for shit. Like, so I was like, what? No. She's like, oh, you are. And I was like, no. Eamon came back from the toilet, and then her and her partner were like, to Eamon, and he was like, I thought we weren't telling people. I was like, technically I didn't tell her. I was like, technically she guessed. Not just really shit lying. So that was cute. But yeah, at that stage, week 4, week 5, like, my boobs had gotten bigger, but other than that, I felt absolutely fantastic. Like, I felt great. I still had my energy. I like switched that all my nutrition was literally on fleek. I was like, we're having our protein, and we're having our whole grain carbs and our healthy fats and all of this, and taking my prenatals, and I'm so good and everything's great. And then week 6 hit like a fucking bang. Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, firstly, I had my first scare, which was absolutely terrifying. So, the whole first trimester, after you find out you're pregnant and you go through the high of that, and it's an amazing feeling, then all of a sudden the anxiety sets in, and you have all these weird things going on with your body. You have no idea what's going on because you've never experienced it before, and everything terrifies you. So, this week in particular, I started getting a pain in my side, and I couldn't really like shake it off. It was weird. Like, it wasn't hurting when I was like exercising or walking and stuff like that. But when I was sitting down, it was really irritating me. And then it started traveling into my back. And that's when I started getting worried. So I messaged the doctor, and I was like, look, I have a pain in my side, and it's going into my back, and it's not going away. Like, what should I do? Should I come in? Blah, 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 blah. And doctors, in true doctor fashion, go into A&E if it's not going away. Like, that's all they said. No reassurance or anything. And by the way, I don't mean to shit on doctors or anything, right? I've decided to go with a hospital birth, but I just kind of want to stick with midwife led care. So just dealing with the midwives and stuff like that, because to be honest, any interactions I've had with the doctors so far have been so cold, right? And not reassuring at all. Whereas any of the midwives, and I understand that they're more there for like medical interventions and stuff like that. If you're someone who has a high risk pregnancy, stuff like that, obviously you are going to be dealing with a consultant, you're going to have a medical team there, and that's kind of the route you're kind of going to have to go, right? But if you're someone who's low risk, which I didn't understand this at all until I looked into it, I don't see the need to go down the more medical route. So I'm perfectly happy just dealing with midwives, because I've just had an absolute joy dealing with any midwife so far. And I've just found the doctors to be very cold, very medical. And at the end of the day, I read a book and they were like, you need to remember, like, when you're pregnant, you're not a patient, like, you're not sick. So we go to the doctor when we're sick. They're like, you're not sick, you're just pregnant. So what you actually need is just a good support system, right? So anyway, this was terrifying me, and I decided to go into A&E on a Tuesday evening because I had to cancel my yoga class. And I was so scared going in. I was fully convinced that it was an ectopic pregnancy because, of course, I Googled it and I was like, what else would it be? Why have I got pains in my back? Like, it was really weird. And I went into A&E, and as soon as I met one of the midwives, she was taking my blood pressure and she did a pregnancy test and all. And she was so lovely, so lovely. And I felt like, of course, oh my God, am I just being dramatic? Like, maybe I shouldn't have came in. She was like, what are we here for? She was like, this is your first pregnancy. I was like, yeah. She was like, literally, you've no reason not to come in. She was like, that's literally what we're here for. She was like, do not feel bad, especially if it's your first pregnancy. She was like, everything, just, you don't know what to expect. And I was like, that made me feel a bit better. Now, the bad side about this is I got blood tests taken. The place was really busy because it was an evening time. There was a lot of people literally in labor or going into labor or looking like they're about to pop in the emergency room. And the emergency room is actually like kind of scary, but the rest of the rotunda where I'm going like was actually lovely. Anytime I was in there after for like scans and stuff like that was lovely, but the emergency room is still emergency room. And they ended up calling me back in, and I saw a doctor again. He literally just touched my stomach around for like 2 minutes and was like, no, I'm happy enough to send you home. Like, have you had any bleeding or anything? And I was like, no. Now, in my head, I was like, don't say it, but I wish I did now. I was like, look, I think what I'm worried about here is that this could be an ectopic pregnancy. So do you not kind of really need to do a scan to ensure that I'm right, that like rule this out? Anyway, he sent me home, was like, come back in 2 days and we'll take more blood tests and check your levels. And that was it. Boom, went home. Now, lo and behold, I get a call from the rotunda the next day, and it's a midwife. And she goes, hi, Narissa, how are you? I'm just following up. You were in A&E yesterday, and we just wanted to touch base with you about what came back on the scan. And I was like, I never got a scan. They sent me off and I saw the doctor and that was it. And she goes, oh, okay. You didn't see, he obviously wasn't a doctor who was specializing in pregnancy or anything. He was probably just there because they were busy. And she was like, okay, no, you should have had a scan. So can you come back in tomorrow morning and we'll do a scan and we'll see if we need to take any more blood tests and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, no bother. So of course then I had the fear of God in, because I knew that she was thinking the exact same as me, that you need to do a scan. We need to make sure the baby's in the right place. And she was like, oh God, I don't want to freak you out. And she was so lovely on the phone. So lovely. Like, she was just like, no, look, it's just for peace of mind. You should have had a scan yesterday, but come in tomorrow morning. We'll get you in early, and just come to the early pregnancy unit and we'll get you in straight away. And I was like, right, no bother. So went the next day, and I was so scared. I was like clutching my crystal. I was like, everything's going to be fine. I was like, the 3 hopes for that first scan were, firstly, that the baby was in the right place. Secondly, that there was a heartbeat. And then lastly, the last selfish reason was I was like, please just be one. I don't think I can handle twins. So because it was an early scan, I had to get the transvaginal scan, which is where they shove the thing up you, which is so enjoyable. As someone who doesn't particularly like tampons, you can imagine how uncomfortable I was with this. My friend was like, well, you may get used to things like this because you have to push something out next year in case you've forgotten. And I was like, I'm in denial about that at the moment, so let's not talk about that. Anyway, she did the scan and we could see baby was in the right place. She had a really thorough scan, checked everything. Baby was measuring a little bit ahead, and she was like, "And we've got a heartbeat." So I was like, "Oh, the relief!" And then when I remember seeing it, it's so weird when you see all the scans like next to each other. Like it literally looked like a jelly bean. It's like that's crazy that that's a human. Well, not really yet, kind of embryo. But I was just like, oh my God, that's crazy. But yeah, I came out, I was so happy. And I was like, oh, it's relief. So that was kind of a very big scare for week 6. And then we were back in a good place. We were excited again, and this was great. And then week 7 was when the nausea really, really hit me, like really hit me bad, and the tiredness. Now, before I got pregnant, I probably would have snuffed off the tiredness and the nausea when pregnant women were talking to me. They're, yeah, I feel really nauseous. And nauseous makes it sound like you feel a little bit sick, right? But oh my God. Like, I'm still nauseous, by the way, and I'm 15 weeks now. I'm still nauseous, but I've kind of mastered it that if I don't let myself get too hungry, I'm okay. And I was lucky enough that I'm not one of them people who's actually getting sick. I've gotten sick, I'd say, about 6 times. And one of them times was randomly on Saturday. And I can't peg it. Sometimes I just wake up. And yeah, I get why it's called morning sickness. It is usually worse in the morning. And I understand this now why. And I'll talk about this in a minute. But actually, it's all day, every day, all the time. And it's not like you feel a little bit sick. Firstly, your nose is like a fucking sniffer dog. So you can smell everything like it's on steroids. Like if someone is smoking 100 meters up the road, I can smell it. Like, and it makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint, right? When you look at things like this, it's so women can tell when food is off and stuff like that. And there is a reason why your sense of smell is heightened. But by God, it makes the nausea so much worse. Like everything just smells awful. And the nice things smell great, but it turns out there's a lot more horrible smelling things than nice smelling things around you most of the time. So the only way I can describe the nausea is it's like you're car sick all the time. And my nausea, which I thought was the same as everyone's, but everyone experiences nausea different. My nausea was the one that I had to eat. Now, I didn't want to eat, but I had to eat. As soon as I ate, it reduced it a little bit. Now, I was like, Narissa being Narissa, I wanted to understand everything as to how this is happening and why this is happening. So, a lot of it, I think, is to do with your blood sugar levels. So, when your blood sugar levels drop, this makes the nausea worse. Now, this is why it's usually worse in the mornings, because after you've fasted for the night and you've slept for the night, your blood sugar level is at its lowest. So if you don't eat in them first few minutes when you wake up, that's when I started getting sick. So I had to eat straight away. I didn't want to. This is the thing, Eamon. We were weeks talking about this until I got like through to him what I was saying. I was like, I'm not hungry. He's like, how are you hungry again? I was like, I'm not hungry. This is the thing. I'm never hungry. I'm not hungry. But the minute I start feeling nauseous, that's when I know I need to eat. Because if I don't catch it, then I'll start getting sick. It's the weirdest thing ever because you're never actually that hungry. There's a handful of times I've actually let myself get hungry in the last 15 weeks. And it was not by choice. It was because I was doing things and I actually didn't have a snack or something with me. Now, that being said, everyone's like, just carry around dry snacks and stuff. Bollocks, didn't work at all. People were like crackers and shit like that. It did absolutely nothing for me. This baby is a carnivore. My meals had to be meals. They had to be protein in them. They had to be like actual meals. So what it meant was I used to be someone who'd push breakfast out and have a late breakfast. I'd have a big breakfast, a big dinner, something sweet after dinner, small lunch in the middle, and maybe a snack, right? But now what I had to do was break up my breakfast, where I was actually having 2 small breakfasts, 2 small lunches, smaller dinner, because I found if I ate too much, I also felt sick. So I was trying to strike the balance. So the first few weeks were a fucking nightmare trying to figure this out. I kind of have it figured out a bit better now, but now I'm into the stage of heartburn and indigestion. So that's a new thing that we're dealing with. So the nausea was just, I had to stay on top of it with regards to making sure I didn't let myself get too hungry. Because if I did, I genuinely would start retching. Like I would be retching when I was out for a walk if I started getting hungry. I'd be dry heaving, and it was horrible. And the tiredness, like I just did not want to do anything at all. I had no motivation. I had no desire to talk to people. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd literally have 2 things on my to-do list, and I'd want to cry. And I'm someone who's so used to having so much energy and being so motivated all the time. I struggled with this so bad from week 7 to week 12. Kind of week 6, but week 6 I was too focused on the scare. So week 7 to week 12, I was really bad. Like I was really struggling mentally because I didn't want to do anything. I had an event on during that time and I wasn't even excited about it. I just wanted to get everything over and done with. Like you're really in survival mode and you don't understand you're in it until you actually come out of it. So it wasn't until I kind of hit week 12 that I realized how bad I'd been. Like I was saying to Eamon, I was just like, I have no joy in me. And I know I should be so grateful that everything is going well. I was like, there's nothing in me that's looking forward to anything. Like I just don't want to do anything. And you know, when you're hungover and you feel sick and you go to bed and you know the next day is going to be better because you're going to be less hungover. Well, it's like you don't have that because you feel sick then, you go to bed, and then actually you know you're going to be even worse in the morning, and then you have to do it all again. And it tears you down. It does. It tears you down. And I don't think enough people talk about how much the physical side of things actually impacts the mental side of it, because you're kicking yourself because you're not being grateful, and at the same time you're just really really struggling. Like, and people glorify pregnancy and they are like, it's such a magical journey, and I'm like, be honest with people that it's not for everyone. It isn't a magical journey for everyone. It really, really isn't. And look, I'm in the 2nd trimester now. I'm feeling a lot better. Start to get my energy back and stuff like that. And I'm definitely enjoying it a lot more now. But I still am very, very aware that those few weeks were really, really tough. And I really, really struggled. Like, and for some people, they find out they're pregnant, it's a perfect excuse to kind of just switch off, not do anything, eat a little bit more, do whatever, right? And that's, everyone's journey is different, right? But being someone who's so active, like all my jobs have always been active. I worked as a dancer for 10 years. I was a PT, yoga instructor. Like I'm so active all the time. Even as a kid, I was always active, that I didn't actually realize how much this was impacting my mental health because I was struggling to be active. Now, I tried my best in week 7 to 12 to get to the gym maybe twice a week. Now, when I say get to the gym, I had to practice self-compassion so much because firstly, I'd get into the gym and I'd cry for like 5 to 10 minutes because I didn't want to be there. I would then do maybe 2 or 3 exercises. I had no strength, no energy, I didn't want to do it. And I was trying to adapt everything as well to listen to my body. If there was ever any pressure or anything, I would stop, I'd pull back. But I just hated every second of it. I was struggling when I was teaching yoga every week. I normally love teaching yoga. I just wanted to get through the classes, and the classes were still great. Everyone still enjoyed them, but I wasn't enjoying teaching them because my classes are quite tough. And I was even struggling, like big time struggling. I wasn't enjoying them. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to do this. And the other thing that people don't talk about is the bloat. Now, I know that given my body type, I am going to notice this a lot more because, firstly, I'm 5 foot, I'm very small, and I'd be quite slim. Now, I'm someone who's always had abs, also, right? Quite naturally, genetically. Even when I would put on a bit of weight, I'd still kind of have a flat stomach. That's not where the weight would go on me. And it's not that I was saying, oh, I miss my abs, but I was like, I just, like, no one talks about the bloat. Like, and you don't look pregnant in this time. You're just, the only way I can describe it to someone who's not pregnant is if your period is really late and you have all that water retention and you literally feel like everything is just swollen, that's how you feel. Like, all my clothes just felt horrible. I was going around with baggy jumpers on. I was in the gym and I was like, my God, I didn't even think that I had any body image issues, because it's something that I've worked through over the last few years. But then seeing your body change so quickly and not having any control over it, but also trying to be compassionate to yourself because it's growing a fucking human, is like a battle in and of itself in your mind. And you're like, oh my God, like, I'm seeing myself change every single day and I have to just be okay with this. And when you're in a good mental state, like I am now in the second trimester, it's cool because I'm starting to get a bump and I'm actually starting to look pregnant and not just bloated. But in that first survival stage, I was so bloated. Everything was just puffy. I was exhausted. I was constantly feeling sick. And I was just like, what is this bloat on top of everything? I was like, why does no one talk about this? This is like not just I'm a little bit bloated. This is constant bloat. Like, it's so strange. But anyway, was really, really impacting my body image, really, really impacting kind of me wanting to even go to the gym because I was really uncomfortable in my own skin for a while as well. Like I was really uncomfortable in my own skin to the point I didn't want to go to things because I felt like I looked like shit. Even though Eamon and my mom were like, you don't look that different at all. And I was like, but I feel like shit. And I was like, what do I always say to my clients? Like, I was like, it's not really about what you look like. It's about how you feel. Because if you feel like you look good, you think you look good. People probably think you look good, right? But you feel like shit most of the time. You're projecting that. Anyway, week 8 came along and we actually had a private scan book for that. And I was so happy we did because I was in the throes of it. I was feeling like shit. And then we went for the scan and we got to see the little heartbeat. And your run was like, it's kind of like a little gummy bear baby now. And I was like, oh my God. And then every time you see them scans, you're reminded of why you're doing this and the outcome. And you're like, okay, it's all worth it. It is all worth it. That same week, we flew to Krakow. And obviously we had this trip booked from before I found out I was pregnant. And before I knew I was going to be in the first trimester while going on holidays. We had a great time. We did still do quite a bit, but God, the flight over and back were torture. The nausea, because when I'm at home, I had such control over my meals and I could eat whenever I started to get hungry. And if I was tired, I'd lie down. I work from home. Whereas over there, it's like I didn't have all this control. And, you know, I would start getting hungry and I'd be like, oh my God, like, and I was trying to explain, like, I'm not actually that hungry. I'm just starting to feel sick. So Emily would be like, do you want to go for lunch? And I'm like, I don't even know if I need lunch or I just need something, but a snack won't do. So there was that and there was the tiredness. We still had an absolutely fantastic time, had a great time away. But every morning when I was waking up as well, we don't normally go for breakfast in the hotels, but we had to. Because if I didn't eat as soon as I was up, I was gagging. And one of the mornings, I was literally getting sick in the shower because we tried to go for breakfast somewhere else as opposed to downstairs. And I tried to have a shower and brush my teeth and stuff first, and that did not go so well. I just was heaving in the shower and getting sick for like 10 minutes. And then we tried to go for breakfast, and the place was closed, and we had to go back to the hotel anyway. But other than that, it was really, really good. I was just really, really, really tired. So the following week kind of knocked me for 6 then. It took me a couple of days to kind of get over everything, get, you know, myself back to having a little bit of structure. But even at that, week 9, no energy, still so nauseous. I was just counting in the days every day until I could go to bed. Again, really, really struggling with body image. Like, I was putting on clothes, and I think it was around this stage then I just decided, like, fuck this. And what was annoying me even more was a lot of people telling me, oh, you won't even notice sometimes until like week 20. And it wasn't until I was actually talking to one of my friends who is literally the exact same size as me. We're due around the same time. She's 5 foot. And she actually made me feel so much better because she was like, oh, Narissa, I literally have been able to notice I was pregnant since literally like week 6. Like she was like, literally, and she was showing me everything. And I was just like, that actually makes me feel so much better because I was like, people telling me I'm not going to notice until 20 weeks. And literally, I just was so, like, I just, all my clothes were getting really tight. Like, I'd have some stuff in there, like extra small stuff and size 4 stuff, size 6 stuff. And I just went and grabbed everything and just fucked it in a bag and threw it over to my mom's. I was like, I can't even look at these anymore because it's actually just annoying me. And then you have to like also, it's like a catch-22 because you're like, oh my God, so what? You have to get rid of some clothes. Like, be so grateful for the fact that your body is doing all this amazing stuff. So it's like you're constantly fighting a battle in your head where there's things that are really hard, but you're also in a really bad mental space, but you're also trying to be grateful because you're like, this is amazing and I am so happy. So it's literally like juggling two things at the same time, right? It's like madness. Now, that being said, I still tried my best to get out for a walk every day. I was trying my best to eat okay. Like, I didn't get any really weird cravings. I had one week, I think, where it was like week 7, where I was like craving crisps for a few days, which is weird for me. I'm not a big crisp person. And my sweet tooth disappeared, which was weird because I'm normally such a sweet tooth person. But other than that, I didn't really have any weird cravings. I kind of was just eating the food I would normally eat, but had to change how I was eating. So, like, I'd have like beans on toast, and then a couple of hours later, I'd have, say, scrambled eggs and something else. Like, I was trying my best to eat fruit and veg, but like, I was just in survival mode, literally just eating anything I kind of felt like I wanted within reason. I was trying to make everything as healthy as possible. I didn't end up being one of them people who could only eat beige, which I was happy about that. That's the thing I didn't know about. They only want like white toast and, you know, like pastries and stuff like that. I was like, no, for me now, in fairness, the food didn't change all that much. It's just how I ate changed. My dinners and stuff kind of stayed the same. And I was trying my best to eat fruit and vegetables, but honestly, when I was just surviving, I was just really just being like, what do I feel like I can eat now? I'm not even that hungry, but I know I'm starting to feel sick, so I just need to eat something. Which is baffling because, by the way, people will be like, you don't need any extra calories for the first trimester. And I'm like, absolute bollocks to that. Like, and there's a lot of information out there that I'm like, it's great for women to notice, but there's a lot of it that makes people feel bad that they're different, right? Everyone is different. And I will say this to a T because people will say, you know, you don't need extra calories for the first trimester, you need this much for the second. But actually, my food has changed not that much from the first and second trimester about like how much I'm kind of eating because I'm not any hungrier now. So I'm like, you know, everyone is different. So it kind of balances out for me because I was like, if I needed 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, and a dinner, and possibly a snack, there was no way that I could have stick to like my maintenance calories. And the only reason I know this is because I tracked for years. So I know what my maintenance calories would have been. And I was like, there's no way I could have stuck to that in the first trimester because if I tried to stick to it, I would have been getting sick because I was like, I have to actually eat this many meals and I've made them smaller. But I was like, there's no way if I tried to fit in like what my maintenance calories are, would I have been able to stick to it. So, and then you have other people who literally like they can't keep anything down in the first trimester. So everyone is different and you really just have to listen to your body. Because for me now, second trimester, nothing much has changed. If anything, like my meals are kind of quite similar. I can let myself get a little bit hungrier now without starting to get sick. Um, Things like that. It's not like really all that different from the first trimester. So I'm not even like way more hungrier. I'm the same. And if anything, I'm eating around the same stuff I ate as the first trimester, but I'm getting way more fruit and veg and I'm actually way more active now. I'm actually like back to nearly hitting 10,000 steps a day and training 3 times a week and stuff like that. So I was like, if anything, it's kind of, it balances out and everyone is different. So take everything you read online with a grain of salt. So week 10 came around and then this is when I started to get a little bit of energy back. Like, I trained in the gym twice that week. I was teaching yoga and I didn't hate the class. And I was walking every day, and I actually was like, okay, I don't feel as much like death anymore. And this was the first week I was able to start having coffee again. So I could not even smell coffee for a few weeks. Like, I was like, ugh. Every time I'd even walk by a coffee shop, I'd be like, oh my God. And it was like, what? The coffee queen doesn't like coffee? And I was like, the thoughts of it were making me like heave. And then all of a sudden, one of the days I had a coffee and I was like, that was actually really nice. And I enjoyed that. So since week 10, I was able to kind of have a coffee a day again. So the thing they recommend is that you don't have any more than 200 milligrams of caffeine a day, which is fine. So I was like, that's a cup of coffee. And then you just have to kind of be careful because some diet drinks and stuff have caffeine in them. So things like Coke Zero, Diet Coke, Lucozade Zero, all these things. I became so dark chocolate also, didn't realize that. So things like that I became a little bit more aware of. And other than that, I kind of just, my nutrition kind of started to improve a little bit. I think at that stage is when I was starting to kind of implement a little bit more fruit and vegetables and stuff in. And then we were nearly at week 12. And week 12, now everyone's like, oh, the nausea is going to go. The nausea still hasn't gone. I'm still nauseous, like a lot. It's not as bad as it used to be. And it's not debilitating anymore. But I think I've kind of just mastered it. I say that, and every time I say that, I end up getting sick the next day. So maybe I shouldn't have said that. But anyway, I think I just know how to handle it a little bit better. But my energy started to come back. I started to have motivation to do things again. Like, I was actually in the mood to go and train. Like, I was in the mood to kind of cook dinners and have more like nutrient dense stuff. And I was actually delighted because in my head, I kept saying to myself, when I got pregnant, I was like, the fact that people stop exercising and start eating for two when they get pregnant and just fuck the baby out with the bathwater, terrible, terrible thing to say there. But it's the only thing that comes to mind. You're training for a marathon. It's going to be the hardest thing you ever put your body through. Ever. Why in God's name, if you have the go ahead from your doctor, would you stop exercising during this? Like, some people are very high risk. They are advised not to exercise or advised not to do certain things, which I totally understand. But I'm talking about someone who's low risk, who's been given the go ahead to exercise and stuff like that. I was like, why in God's name would I stop training now when I have literally exercised my entire life? Why would I stop now when I'm literally getting ready for a marathon next year? Like, that's the reality of it. So actually then I started getting back into my training and enjoying it a bit again, was able to go a little bit harder and stuff like that. So like, my plan of action now for the second trimester, I've signed up to like prenatal strength program. And here's me signing up to it thinking it was going to be piss easy. I did the first day the other day and nearly died. I was like, oh my God, sweat was rolling out of me. So my plan now is kind of to get back to 3 gym sessions a week, and I'm going to be starting prenatal yoga, getting out for my walks and stuff like that. And I really need to start my pelvic floor exercises. And the other thing I've started is hypnobirthing. So look, everyone's journey is so unique. And something that I find, I can't believe I'm saying this, right, is I found TikTok so helpful in the first trimester. This is not for everyone, not if you're someone whose algorithm is going to show them really devastating things. My algorithm just happened to be great because it was showing me everyone else who was struggling through the first trimester. And it actually gave me a bit of comfort. Also, people talking about having to eat all the time and like all these different things and the blow and all these things that I was experiencing that people weren't talking about online, because they don't talk about this in the apps. They just talk about what you're going through physiologically and what your baby's going through and all this stuff. I was like, yeah, but what about this extra stuff that no one talks about? Like, and they were talking about this, and I was following like fitness people like myself, and their journey. And it's funny because they were having very similar symptoms to me in the same weeks as well. So I actually found that very consoling, because there is some sort of consolation in, a common struggle, we'll say. Now, the reality is, do I love being pregnant? I've been asked this, and I was like, well, look, I'm only kind of 2 weeks really into the second trimester. I'm starting to get a bit of a bump now and look pregnant and not just bloated. And I think when I actually have that proper bump and I start feeling kicks, I'm going to love it. Do I love this baby more than life itself already? And would I do anything for it? Absolutely 100%, like without a doubt. It's the weirdest thing ever. Like you just go from being like this person who has these people in your life that you really love, and you've met them along your journey and you love them obviously, to having this baby that you're just like, oh my god, you're this tiny little thing inside my tummy and I would literally murder the world for you, and I have never even met you. So something that's not talked about enough is, you can absolutely feel that and also still be someone who doesn't particularly love pregnancy. And I was following someone the other day and they were really honest about it as well. They were like, no, I didn't love being pregnant. I love my child and I love being a mother, but I didn't love being pregnant. Now, I'm going to do a second episode of this on the second trimester, and I'll do a third episode on the third trimester. That one might take me a little bit longer because, depending on whether I record it before or after I have the baby. But yeah, I think when I start feeling kicks and stuff like that, it's going to feel a lot realer. But I don't particularly look at myself right now and think, oh, everyone keeps telling me I'm glowing and stuff like that. But I'm looking at myself, seeing everything change so quickly. Like I've never had boobs in my life. Now boobs are massive and they're uncomfortable and my back is kind of starting to hurt. And I'm like, ugh. It's like you go from your whole body being yours and you being able to be really selfish, like I love training really hard, to all of a sudden the entire focus of your body is growing a human and it's got nothing to do with you. You need to look after yourself, of course, but it is weird. It is weird. And when I was working in such aesthetic jobs for years as well, it is hard. Like, but at the same time, I have like a printout of our last scan, and you just literally take one look at that picture and you're like, it's all worth it and I'll do anything for you. But like, it's so cool. Like during the first trimester, your baby grows from a cluster of cells into a fetus that is like 2 inches long. Like it's crazy the things that your body does in such like a short space of time and how it just knows to do this. Like it's crazy. And something that is not talked about enough in pregnancy, and I will finish on this, is the placenta, right? Which is another incredible thing that your body develops, right? Literally out of nowhere. And it is crucial in supporting the growth and development of the fetus. So like your placenta is actually a temporary organ that your body develops, right, during pregnancy. And it connects the developing fetus to the uterine wall, facilitating the exchange of nutrients, oxygen, waste products between the mother and the fetus, right? Which is so cool. Like, it's so, so cool. And actually, what I also didn't realize until I looked into this was not only do you have to birth a baby, but you also birth a placenta after you birth the baby. So just when you think it's all done, it's like, no, you still have this to do. But it's so cool. Like so many people do things with the placenta after it's born, and I definitely I'm not going to be one of the people who eats it, but I'm definitely going to ask them to keep it so I can see it, because I think it's really fucking cool that this thing kept your baby alive in the womb the whole time. It's so cool. Like it's involved in nutrient transfer, it's involved in gas exchange, waste removal, hormone production, immune protection, which is so, so cool, antibody transfer. Like it's incredible, like incredible. And the umbilical cord connects the placenta to the fetus, so it serves as the conduit for blood flow between the two of you. So like it's so cool. It actually develops from maternal tissue and fetal tissue. So technically the placenta is made from you and your baby. Like, I don't know, can we just please appreciate the fact that, oh, your body just goes, okay, we're going to do this. And I love reading up what your body's doing and how the baby's developing every week. And it's like, oh my God, they're developing ears this week and they can hear by this week. And it's really, really magical. And when you are someone who's struggling through them times, I found it very comforting to just be like, oh, you know what's really cool? The fact that they are literally developing organs and they are like fully formed by 12 weeks. Like it was mad. We went for the NIPT test at like 10 weeks, I think, 9 or 10 weeks. So we had a scan then. But then I went for my full big scan at like 13 weeks. And it was wild to see the difference. Like it literally was like a proper little human then when we saw them on the scan at 13 weeks. They had like their hands and their feet and they were flying around, and the midwife was like, or the sonographer was like, oh, you have a right little dancer in here. She managed to catch their little feet on the thing as well. It was really, really cute. Um, and I actually brought my mum with me to that scan. So Eamon was at the other ones, but I brought my mum with me to this scan because I just wanted her to get to see the baby as well. So she was like, I wonder where she gets that from. He or she, should I say, he or she gets that from. Everyone thinks it's a boy. Most people think it's a boy. My mom doesn't want to know. I think it's a girl. Eamon thought it was a boy. We actually know the gender, but we're not allowed to say because my mom's probably going to listen to this podcast and she doesn't want to know, so I can't say. But most people think it's a boy. Anyway, I will park it there because this is hella long enough. And I just wanted to share my own story because I just found, if I had something like this to listen to in my first trimester, I think I would have felt a hell of a lot better about the struggles that come along with also you being super, super grateful and excited for this cool little human growing. So if you like this podcast, please, please, please make sure you're following the show, rate the show, leave it a wee review if you're on Apple Podcasts, and please, please, please share this with your friends, share it with social media, share it. I have some really big plans for the podcast for next year, and the more I can kind of get the word out, the more I can hopefully get some sponsorship for the podcast. And if I can get sponsorship for the podcast, it means I can record more episodes. So with that, I'll park it there. Oh my God, it's an hour and 11 minutes. 111. Love it. I hope you have a wonderful new year. Sending you all of my love and have a fabulous day.